Welcome to another edition of Horse Center, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the great pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Shipman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. It is officially summer and things are heating up in thoroughbred racing. We got big races all over the country before Saratoga opens.
Yeah, I like it, Matt. We're going to places that we don't always go. We're going to Altoona, Iowa, for instance. We're going to Shelbyville, Indiana, but we're going to start in New York. We're going to start at Belmont Park, and I think this edition of the Grade One $750,000 Belmont Derby Invitational, Matt, came up really good. Let's jump right into that field. There it is, a field of 11, a mile and a quarter on the turf, of course, Matt. And you're seeing some pretty accomplished horses, but also some pretty potentially very, very good turf horses in here. And I'm not even sure who's going to be the favorite. I think they might end up with the European pair, but it's a wide open race.
Yeah, and I think that Naira's happy with the size of the field. They're happy that they've got the mixture of horses that they were hoping for. Some nice horses coming over from Europe and good quality Americans.
Andrew Balding had the Foxes getting good at the end of his 2-year-old season over in Europe, and he's carried that form over to his 3-year-old season, Matt. A good race to start the season in the Craven, and then probably the biggest prep for the Epsom Derby, the English Derby. The Foxes won the Dante, the Group 2 Dante, nicely. Last time he was 5th in the Epsom Derby, but it wasn't a bad performance at all for the Foxes.
Yeah, a really nice horse, as you've described. A Group 2 winner to end his campaign last year, and got a Group 2 win this year. Placed in a Group 3, tried a Group 1. Really good quality European turf horse who, at the top of his game, is going to be tough.
Yeah, he looks good. He'll be dropping down from 12 furlongs to 10 furlongs for this Belmont Derby as he comes to the United States for the first time. So we'll see how sharp he is. But certainly off his form of his last 5 races or so, the Foxes is definitely one to be drawn to the outside there. The other European is Silver Knot. We've seen Silver Knot over in the States a couple times already, Matt. There's that guy again, trainer Charlie Appleby.
Yeah, and he certainly showed up at Belmont Park last month with all the Charlie Appleby fanfare. He was bet to be the favorite, and I guess you have to say was a little bit of a disappointment, only finishing 3rd in the Pennine Ridge. Is he going to bounce back and run better? I assume that they left him over here after the Pennine Ridge to train in New York.
Yeah, it was a little bit disappointing, but I think he ran it against a couple of very good horses that we're going to talk about. But he certainly could move forward off that effort. That was a prep for the Belmont Derby. And of course, last year, he just missed in the Breeders' Cup juvenile turf. So Silver Knot, obviously a horse of class. Both the Foxes and Silver Knot are multiple group winners over in Europe. So they bring the class that we see so often come over. But then we have a slew of nice Americans, Matt. We could start with Web Slinger, just because Web Slinger, the number 4 horse, has won a couple stakes in a row out here in Kentucky.
Yeah, and for Mark Casse, Web Slinger has a terrific turf record in his career. In 8 starts, he's got 4 wins, 2 seconds, and a third, only out of the top 3 once. As you mentioned, a couple of nice turf wins heading into this Belmont Derby. He was first in the Audubon at Churchill Downs and was also first in the American Turf, which is a Grade 2. This is a horse that's in really good form right now, and when Cassie's got them in good form, he runs them.
Yeah, Whip Slinger won that American Turf 2 starts back, validated it, as you said, with a win in the Audubon. But 2 starts back, he had some nice odds, and he rallied to get up in the final jump. So Web Slinger, a multiple stakes winner, has some class. Let's also talk about the 2 Americans that finished narrowly ahead of Silver Knight Knot last time in the Pennine Ridge, and the winner was Khalik. And since Khalik has come up north to Belmont Park for trainer Chad Brown, one of 2 in the field for the always dangerous Chad Brown in these big turf races, Khalik has looked really good. He went wire to wire last time in the Pennine Ridge.
Yeah, only 2 in the race for Chad. Sometimes 3, 4, even 5 in the big turf races. Yeah, did it on the front end. I don't know if we describe that as a speed horse, but as a horse that uh, does good work setting the pace and controlling the race out front, which can be dangerous in these kind of turf races where everybody just kind of sits behind, waiting to make their move. But this horse out front just doesn't stop. 3 in a row, moving from a maiden special weight to an allowance to that victory in the Pennine Ridge.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the speed. Remember Classic Causeway, of course, Matt. Surprising uh, before last year in this race. But Khalik got some slow paces recently, and he's controlled the race on the front end, like when he beat both uh, Far Bridge and Silver Knot last time. So it'll be interesting to see where Khalik is positioned early, but he should be forwardly placed at the very least. But you see, they have him second behind a longer shot, although an interesting longer shot, at least to me. His name is Wizard of Westwood. We'll talk more about him in a minute. But there's not a ton of pace here, and you see Khalik, one of the favorites, behind a longer shot, Wizard of Westwood, on the Timeform US pace projector. We do need to talk about the horse that split Khalik and Silver Knot in that Pennine Ridge. His name is Far Bridge, Matt, and I think he's kind of unlucky to be only 2 for 4 so far. 2 nice wins down at Gulfstream Park, but Far Bridge was very good in defeat in both the American Turf, won by Web Slinger, and then last time in the Pennine Ridge.
Yeah, certainly talented turf horse for Todd Pletcher, who is having more and more of quality turf horses in his barn. You mentioned won his first 2 on the turf impressively, and yeah, a couple of second places in really good fields behind really good turf horses that we've already talked about.
Yeah, he just missed by a nose in the American Turf coming up the rail. And last time, he was the horse that had the trouble in the Pennine Ridge trying to run down Khalik. So Far Bridge, certainly a dangerous horse in here as well. And I think he will be one of the favorites for trainer Todd Pletcher off that kind of trip performance. The other brown horse is Redistricting. Who knows how good he is? He's only had 1 race and he won it big. Mendelssohn's March has some potential for Kenny McPeak, Boppy O, another Cassie Stakes winner, Cyber Ninja, and Mondego could be nice horses. But I want to talk a little bit about Wizard of Westwood, Matt, because he's run nothing but good races. He's got the most speed in the race, and he's won at 1.25 miles.
Yeah, it's always kind of hard to judge the quality, the class level of horses that are coming from turf careers on the West Coast at Santa Anita. I mean, typically, I'll say, they might be a cut below the horses racing on the turf in the East. So a trip from California is often a tough ask. But this one's trained by Michael McCarthy, who has a really good record shipping from the West to the East and bringing horses that compete well. I think that is partially because of his tenure as an assistant for Todd Pletcher.
Yeah, that's true. Michael McCarthy, got to like him. You also got to like Johnny V jumping on Wizard of Westwood, Matt, because if there's one jockey in the country right now that I like getting on the lead and then kind of controlling the pace, kind of softening the pace up a little bit while on the lead, Johnny V's my guy. And he gets on Wizard of Westwood, who, again, has been consistent, probably getting better with every start, coming off a 1.25 mile win in a stakes race out in California. I agree, though. Europe is up here. East Coast turf is down here. and then California turf. So Wizard of Westwood has that to overcome as far as the class of this Belmont Derby. But an interesting long shot for me. All right, Matt, that's Belmont Derby. How about Indiana? They have a Derby too on Saturday. And we're going to take a look at that field now, Matt. We have a field of 9, a potential field of 9. I think there's 1 or 2 horses that are cross-entered in both the Indiana and the Iowa Derby. So something to keep an eye on Saturday to see where exactly everyone winds up. But it doesn't affect the favorite in the Indiana Derby, verifying for Brad Cox. Brad Cox likes to travel up Highway 65 north to the Indianapolis area. He goes up there a lot to Horseshoe Indianapolis, and he's got the favorite verifying going a mile and a 16th, $300,000 grade 3 on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go against Brad Cox in these 3-year-old races, whether it's the Derby Trail or now as we move into the summer derbies, etc. Verifying's got a couple of very nice second place finishes, most recently in the Matt win, which was won by Disarm, a horse that, I liked on the Derby Trail that did pretty well in the Kentucky Derby. Before that, Verifying did run in the Derby, finished 16th, and his final prep was, again, a nice second in the Bluegrass Stakes. So dropping down in class a little bit here to the grade 3, to the mid-major Derby, he's the horse to beat.
Yeah, and when we were setting these odds, I thought Verifying was a level ahead of everybody else. But the reason I didn't go lower is because there are so many interesting horses in here. There's so many possibilities, so many horses of potential, horse stakes winners who have popped up. And it makes for kind of an interesting race. But it looks like Verifying is the lone horse on the A list for me. And then you have a bunch of Bs. So the Bs are going to get some attention, but Verifying certainly is the favorite. I think if he runs back to the Matt Win or the Bluegrass, maybe the Bluegrass especially, he's going to be awfully tough to beat at a mile 16th. I don't think he's a mile and a quarter horse. Mile 16th on a track that generally favors horses who are on or near the lead. And Verifying probably will be out there, Matt. We'll take an early look at that time form US pace projector. And sure enough, there's the favorite, Verifying. That's a good place for the favorite to be, out on the lead.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it, Brian, at Indiana, and particularly with this kind of field, he's got a good chance to control the race.
Yeah, control the race, and at a distance he probably likes. Transect is 3 of 4 for Paulo Lobo, the 1, but the really interesting horse who has some speed besides Verifying is that 3 horse, Matt, Active Fool. Unfortunately, Larry Rivelli lost his stable star, 2 Fills, to injury. He had to be retired recently after the big win in the Ohio Derby. But now Larry Rivelli's after more 3-year-old prizes with Active Fool. And since coming up to Hawthorne, he had 1 race at Turfway over the synthetic surface to make his career debut. He showed nothing. 4 races at Hawthorne. He is just toyed with the competition up in Chicago.
Sure has 4 impressive victories at Hawthorne, beginning with his maiden special weight, then put together 2 nice allowance wins, and most recently won the Hawthorne Derby. I don't know. I find this horse interesting. Maybe I'm feeling a little sorry for Larry Rivelli and hoping that Act a Fool can, take away the sting of 2 Fills' retirement.
Possibly. The other thing about Active Fool, I think he's a horse of big potential, but part of me, being a son of Oscar Performance, part of me looks at those 4 races at Hawthorne as like, he's a talented horse. He's going well right now, but he might be a better turf horse than a dirt horse. Any worries there?
Well, I don't know if I worry about it, but it sure gives Rivelli another strong option if after this Indiana Derby. If things go well, they can stay on the dirt. If maybe not, they can try the turf. They can go to Saratoga or wherever.
Yeah. You're right. And that Hawthorne Derby, which was a turf race last time, his
Yeah.
first turf race,
Yeah.
really was an impressive performance that makes me think he fits with graded stakes horses. So interesting to see what Active Fool can do. There's some others in here that are interesting too. Georgie W has won his only two starts, and he did it impressively. Hard to know how big a jump he's making in class. The same can be said for On the Stage, who comes from that powerful Steve Asmussen barn, uh, losing three straight at Oaklawn to begin his career, but his last two at Lone Star. He might be a good one as well.
Yeah, and a horse that likes to run from off the pace. So if horses that are out front start getting tired a little bit, that's a good spot. And with Asmussen in the Midwest, that at Prairie Meadows, he's tough out there.
Yeah, although this one's Indiana. We're doing Prairie Meadows next.
Yeah, sorry, Brian.
But either way, Asmussen is tough everywhere. So your statement still rings true. Interesting horses On the Stage and Georgie W, but they're certainly moving up in class. Another interesting horse to me, Cagliostro, a Florida bred. He's only had one stakes race. It was the Louisiana Derby, and he kind of faded that day. He did break through the gate before the race, which may have helped him tiring in the Louisiana Derby at a mile 3/16, but comes in with a bunch of good races besides that, including last time he just missed running late in an allowance race at Churchill Downs.
Yeah, an interesting horse for trainer Cherie DeVoe, who was an assistant for Chad Brown for many years.
Yeah, she's getting better and better. It seems like DeVoe horses are running, and Cagliostro is a horse that certainly could pop up, and maybe it will be Saturday here in the Indiana Derby. Looking at the field, we probably haven't talked about the two horses that could vie for second choice. I saw in the official morning line from Indiana, Hayes Strike was clearly second choice. I'm not sure that I'm jumping that way, but the way Kenny McPeek has been doing, it seems like he loves the summer, and every summer Kenny McPeek wins big races. Hayes Strike is a two-time stakes winner, coming in off of a well-beaten third behind Two Phils in the Ohio Derby, but still, he's another rallier who's done some things.
Yeah, he won the Texas Derby at Lone Star before the Ohio Derby. Now he comes back on short notice from the third place finish in the Ohio Derby. I don't know if I love the coming back this quickly.
Yeah, 2 weeks is a short turnaround these days, but Kenny McPeek will do that with horses that are going well in his barn. And then Ray's Kane, we still remember that Gotham when he was big odds and he came flying down the stretch to win by a lot of lengths on a off track at Aqueduct. He's run 3 races since. He's lost them all. He hasn't finished in the top 3 in all. But on the other hand, it was the Bluegrass, the Kentucky Derby, and the Matt Winn last time. And he didn't run poorly in any of them for trainer Ben Colebrook.
No, he didn't. But, he didn't run particularly well either. But he didn't run bad. He's another one that's cross-entered in the Iowa Derby. So we'll see where this one goes. We've talked before about how it's hard to reproduce those long shot victories like he had in the Gotham, and that's been the case thus far.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I don't mind those races that he's run. I think potentially, if he gets the right trip, he's a danger, and maybe a mile 16th trip is a good trip for him. But Verified did beat him pretty easy last time. The only horse we didn't mention, Matt, is Stay in Your Lane, and we didn't mention him with good reason.
Yeah, that's
enough said.
That's for sure. Former maiden claiming 10,000 horse.
Yeah, and he still is. Claiming 10,000 horse. All right, so that's the India Derby. Let's go out a little farther west to Altoona, Iowa for Prairie Meadows' big night of racing. Matt mentioned the Iowa Derby. They have the Iowa Oaks. But the best race of that evening out at Prairie Meadows is the Cornhusker. I remember when Fort Larned won the Cornhusker and the Breeders' Cup Classic the same year, Matt. So don't sleep on the Cornhusker, I guess is what I'm saying. I also remember when the Cornhusker was at Aksarben for years and years out in Nebraska. That track, of course, is no longer with us. But we have a nice field of 10. My morning line and the official morning line are slightly different. Not all that different, but slightly different. In we have the favorite and the second choice flip flop. The morning line in Iowa says Skippy Longstocking is a tepid choice, coming off a disappointing performance in the Ben Ali.
Yeah, and before that disappointing finish in the Ben Ali, Skippy Longstocking was the winner of the Grade 3 Challenger at Tampa Bay Downs, and with other good races in his PPs, he comes from the barn of trainer Safi Joseph Jr., who I guess now is gotten out of the Churchill Downs doghouse.
Yeah, that's right. Churchill Downs has reinstated Safi Joseph. Of course, he had two horses die of a heart attack the week of the Derby. He was suspended. He couldn't run more miles in the Kentucky Derby, among other horses. But he's been cleared of that. So he has Skippy Longstocking as a potential favorite. He, of course, won the West Virginia Derby. He won the Harlan's Holiday. And as Matt mentioned, he won the Challenger. 3 Grade 3 races at 3 different tracks out of his last 6. So maybe a deserving favorite, but the horse I listed as the favorite is the local horse, Matt, Ain't Life Grand. 7 wins, 9 starts at Prairie Meadows. Never been out of the money, but 7 wins and 9 starts, most of them stakes races. He's the Iowa Derby winner from last year, and after a slow start to this year, he has looked good in his last 2.
Yeah, sure has. Looked good, maybe farther back than that, having won 3 out of his last 4 races. He won a listed stakes at Prairie Meadows last time and another listed stakes at Oaklawn Park. Before that, kind of threw in a clunker in there with a 7th place finish at Oaklawn Park. And then before that, another stakes win that was in an Iowa bred race. So the horse is in very good form right now. The local horse, I guess, tackling the toughest field as of late.
Yeah. He faded a bit in the Travers last year, but he beat some decent horses in the Iowa Derby. But I'll agree with you, this is his toughest test yet, because I do think this is a very good field for a Grade 3 race. Ain't Life Grand, the only bad one really was the beginning of the year, the start of the year. So that was off a layoff. So I'm going to excuse that one in his last 2. Really good. He's a horse who rallies, and he's done it often. As I said, 7 out of 9 at Prairie Meadows. And we're going to look at the Time Form US pace projector now, and we'll see that they have that big red button up top, Matt. Fast pace projected here. And they're talking about a Fleet Ridge, a long shot who ran well in this race last year, closely stalked by horses like Skippy Longstocking, Frosted Grace, who we're going to talk about in a minute, and also Promise Keeper and Giant Game, who aren't throwouts in this Cornhusker handicap.
Yeah, and Fleet Ridge was a winner of his last race. It was a starter handicap with the $20,000 condition on it, but it was a front running effort.
It was a front running effort, and it looks like a fast pace is expected here. So that could be a little bit tougher for him, a long shot. But also Skippy Longstocking and some other contenders here. We'll have to see how that pace unfolds. But they're saying contentious at Time Form US this time for the Cornhusker. You see, Ain't Life Grand, the other horse I think that will vie for favoritism, a little farther back, the number 10 there on the graphic. Going back to the field, though, Matt. Yeah, we talked about the 2 probable favorites, but then I think there are 3 horses that are really close behind, at least as how it looks on paper. They should be wagered. We can start with Frosted Grace, who has never been better for trainer Robertino Diodoro.
Yeah, that's for sure. Has never been better. In his last 5 races, Brian, he has been first or second, and he's been going every other race. Second, then win, second, then win. And most recently, with Frosted Grace, he was the winner of a Grade 3 at Lone Star Park, then a second at Oaklawn Park, and before that, a win in an allowance at Oaklawn Park, a second at Oaklawn, and a win at another allowance at Oaklawn Park. So yeah, this Diodoro horse is in really good form, and on a track that he likes.
Yeah, the one thing about Frosted Grace that I don't love in this spot, maybe the pace, although he can rally a bit, but I always feel like Frosted Grace is just a little bit better shorter. So the fact that this is 9 furlongs and not a mile like the Steve Sexton, Grade 3 Steve Sexton mile last time was, or maybe even a mile 16, I think that might hurt his chances. But boy, we've seen Diodoro get horses good, and this is a horse who is getting good. So certainly a threat in here. Another horse we have to talk about, Matt, is Warrant. Warrant was actually the favorite in the Cornhusker handicap last year, and he disappointed as a third place finisher. Warrant's been running long lately, so I'm not sure what to expect, but he's got a lot of back class, and he comes from a good barn.
Yeah, long for sure, Brian. His last race was at Belmont Park in the Brooklyn Handicap, where he finished fourth. Before that, he did have a win in a listed stake at Churchill Downs, and third in another one in the Temperance Hill.
Yeah, those last three races are all at a mile and a half. But of course, Warrant has done it at different distances. Don't forget, he almost won the Santa Anita Handicap back in 2022, the Grade 1 at a mile and a quarter. Warrant is always dangerous. But yeah, I wonder, coming out of 3 straight mile and a half races. Another horse that we said, like Frosted Grace, coming in never better is Call Me Fast, Matt. And if you're a believer of Rattle and Roll, which I think we both are, especially after his good second place finish in the Foster last time, Call Me Fast's last 2 races where he was second to Rattle and Roll, both of those, his form is very good coming into this Cornhusker.
Yeah, those Grade 3s at Churchill Downs, second in the Blame, second in the Ben Ally. Didn't do as well in a Grade 3 at Oak Lawn Park, but won a couple of allowances at that Arkansas track also. Got a little bit of versatility. Sometimes he likes to be out front setting the pace, but other times he'll sit off in a stalking position.
Yeah, and I think 9 furlongs is a good distance for him, and I think he will sit off this fast pace, and I think he has a really good shot coming off that good form. Call Me Fast, the number 3 horse. We could also talk about Promise Keeper, who is a graded stakes winner in the past, and Giant Game, who also has some back class. Both of them are interesting long shots coming from the inside post positions of the Cornhusker.
Yeah, Giant Game is for Dale Romans, and had a nice allowance win last time prepping for this. He's another one of those horses that might be part of the pace.
Yeah, Giant Game seems to be rounding back into form. He was third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile a couple years ago, and he didn't have it in a couple starts last year, but he is rounding back into form. So makes me, not this time, is a sire I've really grown to like, and it makes me think Giant Game is an interesting long shot in this Cornhusker field. Matt, we went through 3 nice fields, boom, 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 at Belmont, at Horseshoe Indianapolis, and at Prairie Meadows. It's time to make our top picks in these interesting betting races. I'm going to let you go first. We'll start with what we just finished with, the Cornhusker.
Yeah, Brian, and you say nice races, and I agree. Nice races to me in these cases are I don't know. These don't feel like races where I'm seeing any favorites that are the kind where it's like, wow, that there's no way they're going to beat that horse. So I think I'm tending to higher prices than usual in all 3 of these. But I'll start with the Cornhusker. I'm going to take a shot with the Diodoro horse. Diodoro can get them going. Diodoro can be sneaky and win some big races. So I am picking Frosted Grace.
Yeah, Frosted Grace certainly one of several in the Cornhusker with a shot. I like the local horse. I think the local horse is really good. I like the way this race sets up for his rally with that, again, Timeform US pace projection of a pretty fast pace. I like Ain't Life Grand. If this was any other track, I probably wouldn't be making him my top pick, but at Prairie Meadows, I like Ain't Life is Grand to pick him up in the stretch, as he's done so many times. I'm going to disagree with you as far as the favorites because there is one of these three races where I really do fear the favorite. And while there were several horses I looked at in the Indian Derby, I could not get away from Brad Cox and Verifying.
Yeah, I don't blame you on that, Brian. He is certainly the horse to beat, but I don't know. Hasn't gotten to the winner's circle recently. I know maybe those races were a little tough, and it's hard to bet against Brad Cox, but I don't know. Brad Cox means that he's probably going to get overbet in the Indiana Derby. Maybe I'm being sentimental. Brian knows I'm that kind of guy. I'm going to go with the Larry Ravelli horse, hoping that he gets to win a big stakes race on the heels of Two Phil's retirement. I like that this horse was supplemented into the field. Ravelli's got him going good. And Ravelli, he's not the kind of guy that is going to encourage his owners to put up a supplemental fee if he doesn't think they've got a really good choice. So act a fool for me in the Indiana Derby.
Yeah, there's a lot of good points there. And Active Fool was very good on the dirt at Hawthorne. But my favorite race from Active Fool so far is a turf race. So I might have mud in my eye at the end of this, but I'm just thinking he's got a bigger future on turf, but a very, very interesting horse. And that Hawthorne Derby, do not sleep on Active Fool. If it doesn't happen Saturday here at Indiana, I think he may have a big win down the road, but it might come on turf. The Belmont Derby, Matt, probably the best race of the three. It's the biggest grade one. It's 750,000 and a lot of potential winners. Who'd you go with?
Yeah, and it's part of a big card at Belmont Park with several other graded stakes races. Yeah, I once again, I'm not going to go with the favorites. I'm not going to go with the Europeans. You know me, I'm usually always on Charlie Appleby, but they're going to be tough. I don't know. I guess maybe it's crazy to think that that the winner isn't going to be one of those two Europeans, but I'm going to go with a horse that has really good recent form. That's the Mark Cassie horse, Web Slinger.
Yeah, and surprisingly, I'm going with what you've talked about over the years as far as Web Slinger. I think he's due for a loss. I don't know if that's handicapping or just some sort of strange coincidences where horses can't string together long winning streaks, especially in big races. So I have a feeling Web Slinger's not going to win, Matt. I'm sorry to say. And the Euros are tough. The Foxes off those races, getting ready and then running in the English Derby. Silver now, we already know he's really good. I think Far Bridge still could be any kind. There's a few others who could be any kind. Khalik is a danger close to the pace, having won the Pennine Ridge, the prep for this. But I landed on the horse who I think is going to be on the lead. Wizard of Westwood. I had him at 12-1 on the morning line. I think he'll probably even be higher than that coming from California. I don't think he'll be shown much respect. Maybe he won't be much higher because Johnny V's on him, but that's another reason I like him. Wizard of Westwood, getting on the lead, slowing things down, and seeing how far he can go in this Belmont Derby. Ooh, that was a packed show, Matt. Can I get a parting shot from you as always?
Absolutely. I just want to make my parting shot, adding one more thing about the Belmont Derby, talking about redistricting. Chad Brown's other horse. I was surprised to see Chad put this horse in here. I saw this horse's maiden special weight win, and it was super impressive. A tremendous, tremendous turn of foot down the stretch to easily dispatch that field. But to see him come into this grade one when there are so many more options coming up at Saratoga for him, I don't know. Probably going to get really big odds for a Chad Brown horse if you're looking for a long shot.
Yeah, redistricting is a horse I fear. I mean, he could be anything. And we've seen horses like Taba win the Santa Anita Derby in his second career start. This is a loaded field at 10 furlongs, though, to start to make your second career start. As good as he may be, it'll be tough for him to win. But yeah, he could be a month from now. We could be saying he's the best young turf horse in the country. So We'll see. And you'll see. And hopefully you'll win. We appreciate you watching Horse Center every week. Matt and I love doing the show for you. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the notification, turn on the notifications, leaving a comment, all the above. Do it now for us. We love it. Thanks to Candace Curtis for the great race graphics she provides every week here at Horse Center. Derby Wars, the best contest site out there. They're our sponsor. And Timeform US for those pace projectors Matt and I like to use every week. All right, Matt. Full show. We're out of here. Next week, we're going to be talking nothing but Saratoga, which sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely.
For now, we'll see you then right here on